Static image ads are one of the cheapest creatives to test on Meta right now. They're fast to produce, easy to iterate, and when they hit, they can outperform a lot of the videos that are just sitting in your ad account. But here's the problem. Most people look at static ads and judge them like designs, with questions like, does this look clean, does this look premium, and does this look like something a brand would post? And that is the wrong way to look at them. A static ad is not supposed to win a design award. It has one job: stop the scroll, make the right person care, and make the claim believable enough for them to click. So in this video, I'm not just going to show you the static ad examples, I'm going to rank them. I built 65 different static ad examples across 7 different categories, and I'm going to put each format into a tier list based on 3 factors. Number 1, scroll stop. Does the ad actually interrupt the feed? Number 2, buyer motivation. After someone stops, does this ad make them want the product? And number 3, believability. Does this ad feel real, or does it feel like marketing nonsense that you see all over? Every ad gets judged on these 3 things: scroll stop, buyer motivation, and believability. And by the end of this video, you're not just going to know what static ads look like. You're going to know which ones are actually worth testing and which ones are overrated, and also which ones only work in specific situations. So let's get into it. Static ad tier list. Before we start ranking, here's the tier system we're going to use. S tier means this is a must-test format. It has a strong hook, a strong reason to buy, and it can work across a lot of brands when it's executed well. A tier means it's a very strong format, but it depends more on the product, the angle, and the quality of execution. B tier means it can work, but it's more situational. C tier means it needs the perfect product, perfect audience, or perfect offer. And D tier means it's usually weak, risky, or easy to ignore. Hook first ads are designed to win the first split second. The goal is not to explain the whole product. The goal is to make somebody stop long enough for the rest of the ad to do its job. And the first format is the bold claim ad. This one is going in A tier. A bold claim works because it gives the brain something specific to react to. If the ad says something like captures 99.97% of tiny particles, your brain immediately goes, wait, is that true? That pause is the entire point. This scores very high on the scroll stop because a specific claim is much stronger than a vague copy like cleaner air or better results. It also scores pretty well on buyer motivation because the claim tells you why the product matters. The only reason I didn't put this in S tier is because of believability. Bold claims are powerful, but they're also fragile. If the number feels exaggerated, unsupported, or too good to be true, the whole ad falls apart. So the rule with bold claim ads is simple. The claim has to be big, specific, and visually supported by the product. Next is the identity statement ad. This one is B tier. Identity statement ads sell who the buyer wants to be. They work well when the product is part of a lifestyle or personality. Something like water for people who hate boring water is not really selling hydration. It's selling attitude. And that can be very powerful. But it's also not always a direct buying trigger. It can stop the right audience and it can make the brand feel more interesting, but it does not always create urgent buyer motivation. So I like the format, but I'd call it B tier as a standalone performance static. Next is the problem callout. This is S tier. Problem callout ads are one of the strongest static formats because they start with something the buyer already feels. Stress pimple, tired eyes, back sore. Do you wake up dry? The viewer does not need to know your brand. They do not even need to know your product. They only need to recognize the problem. That's why this format works so well on cold traffic. It has high scroll stop because the right person feels called out. It has high buyer motivation because the pain is already active. And it has high believability because you're not just making a crazy claim just yet. You're just naming the problem. That is why problem callout ads are S tier. Next is the problem stack. This is also S tier. A problem stack is when you list multiple related pain points in one image. Instead of only saying back sore, you say neck tight, back sore, legs dead. That increases the chances the viewer sees themselves in the ad. It works especially well for products that solve a cluster of related problems. The only thing you have to watch for is clutter. If the ad is clean and easy to scan, this is one of the best formats that you can test. If it becomes a wall of text, then it falls apart, but overall it has to go to S tier. Next is the curiosity gap. Curiosity gap ads are A tier. They work because they open a loop. What happens after month 3? Why I stopped doing this? The part nobody tracks. The viewer stops because they want the missing answer. That gives this format a very high scroll stop score. But I'm not going to put it in S tier because curiosity can become clickbait. If the answer is weak, vague, or disconnected from the product, the viewer feels tricked. So this is a strong format, but the payoff has to be real. Next is the personal curiosity story. This one has to go to B tier. The first person angle makes it feel more native and human. Why I stopped dry saving. Why I changed my routine. What I switched to after this stopped working. This can be strong, especially in beauty, grooming, skincare, and wellness. But as a standalone ad, it depends heavily on the story being interesting. If the reason behind the switch is not specific, then the ad becomes soft. So I'd use this, but I would not put it in the highest tier. Next is the pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt ads are A tier. These use visual language that does not look like a normal ad, with warning labels, caution tape, red alerts, system errors, etc. Your brain first perceives it as something important before it can perceive it as advertising. That gives it a huge scroll stop advantage. But the weakness is believability. If the warning is too dramatic or the product payoff is unclear, the ad can feel forced. So I like this format a lot, but it needs clean connection between the warning and the product. Next is the category callout or scam style ad. This one has to go to D tier for me. It definitely stops the scroll, but calling something a scam creates tension. But the problem is believability. The second you say a whole category is broken, misleading, or a scam, you need proof. A lot of brands use this angle because it feels edgy, but without real support, it can feel like fake outrage. So yes, it can work, but as a standalone static format, I think it is risky and overused. D tier. Next is the direct question ad. This is S tier. A direct question ad is one of the cleanest ways to stop the right person. Do you or your partner snore? Do your knees hurt going upstairs? Still using this old product. The viewer instantly knows whether the ad is for them or not. That's powerful. This format does not need to stop everyone, it just needs to stop the right people. That means cleaner attention, stronger buyer motivation, and better believability. Simple question, clear problem, obvious audience, S tier. Next is the retargeting question ad. This is B tier. A line like still thinking about better sleep works when someone already knows the product. This makes it very useful for retargeting, but it's much weaker on cold traffic. If someone has never seen the brand before, the question has no context. So I like it as a warm audience ad, but as a standalone static format, it's situational. B tier. So for hook first ads, my S tier formats are problem callouts, problem stacks, and direct questions. Those are the ones I would test first because they're clear, buyer specific, and believable. So now let's move on to proof first ads. Proof first ads don't need a clever headline. The evidence is the hook. First is the before and after ad. Before and after ads are A tier. They are extremely strong because the transformation is instantly clear. The viewer does not need a paragraph or copy. They can see the result themselves. That creates a very high buyer motivation. But I don't put this in S tier because before and afters are very fragile. If the result looks fake, if the lighting changes too much, or if the transformation feels exaggerated, then trust immediately drops. So this is a powerful format, but believability is the constraint. Next is the result focused before and after. This one has to go to B tier. It can work really well when the result is obvious, like hair removal, whitening, cleaning, or skincare, but it depends almost entirely on the visual. If the viewer does not believe the result, there isn't much else carrying the ad. So I like it, but I'd rank the broader before and after format higher than this narrower result focused version. Next is the timeline proof. Timeline proof is A tier. This answers the buyer's hidden question. How long will this take? That matters because most buyers are not only asking whether the product works, they're also asking when they should expect to see a change. Month 1, month 3, or month 6. This makes the process feel trackable and believable. Strong format. A tier. Next is specific timeline proof. This is B tier. Specific timelines are useful because they feel more believable than vague promises, but they're also category dependent. They work best for products where progress over time makes sense. Hair, lashes, skincare, supplements, fitness, and routines. Outside of those categories, the format may feel forced. So it's useful but situational. Next is the testimonial card. This is B tier. Testimonials are useful because the message comes from a customer instead of the brand. But testimonial cards are also extremely common. A quote inside a clean box with 5 stars is not always enough to stop the scroll anymore. It can build trust, but it's not the strongest attention format. So I'd usually stack this with a stronger hook. By itself, it's B tier. Next is the vulnerable testimonial. This is S tier. The difference between a normal testimonial and a vulnerable testimonial is emotional specificity. A normal testimonial says, "This product is good." A vulnerable testimonial says, "This changed something personal for me." That feels way more real. It sounds like a person talking to a friend, not a brand writing ad copy. This scores high on buyer motivation and believability. And if the quote is strong enough, it also stops the scroll. S tier. Next is UGC style static. UGC style statics are A tier. They look like normal content before they look like ads. That reduces resistance. A fridge shot, bathroom counter, mirror selfie, phone photo, these formats feel native. They score very high on believability. The only reason I don't make this S tier is that a UGC look is not enough. The ad still needs a strong hook. A casual photo with weak copy is just lifestyle content, but with the right line, this can be a very strong format. Next is the first person problem story. This is A tier. This format combines a personal story with a specific pain point. How I finally dealt with bumpy arms, how I stopped waking up with dry skin, and how I fixed this part of my routine. It feels like a blog post or a TikTok story turned into an ad. And that gives it curiosity and buyer motivation. So it's a strong format, especially for beauty, wellness, and personal care. Next is the guarantee ad. Guarantee ads are A tier. They remove the risk. The buyer's hidden objection is, what if this doesn't work? A guarantee answers that before the objection grows. It scores very high on buyer motivation and believability. But on its own, it's not always the strongest scroll stop. That's why I like guarantees best when they're stacked with another concept. Problem callout plus guarantee. Problem callout plus guarantee. Before and after plus guarantee. Offer plus guarantee. That's where they become very strong. Next is guarantee plus urgency. This is A tier. Now you're combining two forces. The guarantee removes the risk and the urgency gives the viewer a reason to act now. That's a strong conversion combo. The only callout is fake urgency. If the deadline feels manufactured, then believability drops. But when the urgency is real, this can be a strong warm traffic ad. Next is authority badge. Authority badge ads are B tier. They build trust, but they usually don't stop the scroll very hard. A lot of logos can make a product feel more credible, but it doesn't always make someone pause. So I see this as a supporting format. It's great to stack with a stronger hook, but as a main creative idea, it goes in B tier. Next is expert approval. Expert approval is also B tier. For example, developed with dermatologist, trainer approved, recommended by stylist. These lines build credibility. But again, they're not usually enough to carry the entire ad. They help the buyer believe, but they don't always make the buyer stop. It's useful, but more of a trust layer rather than a main hook. B tier. For proof first ads, the standout is vulnerable testimonial. Before and afters, timeline, UGC, and guarantees are strong too, but they depend heavily on believability. Now let's move on to offer first ads. Offer first ads make the math obvious. These usually work best when the buyer already knows their product and just needs a reason to act. First is the price anchor. Price anchors are S tier. This is one of the clearest formats in advertising. You show the original price crossed out. Then you show the new price. The brain immediately sees the gap. The viewer does not need to calculate the value. The ad does it for them. This has strong buyer motivation and high believability because the message is simple. If the product is already interesting, a good price anchor can push people over the edge. S tier. Next is a simple discount ad. Simple discounts are B tier. They're clear and they can work, but they're also generic. 20% off is easy to understand, but does not say much about why the product is worth buying. So this is useful, especially for warm traffic, but I would rather use a stronger price anchor, bundle, or urgency angle. Next is the bundle ad. Bundle ads are A tier. They work because visual abundance increases perceived value. A buyer sees multiple products and feels like they're getting a full kit, routine, or system. This works extremely well for beauty, food, apparel, accessories, supplements, and gifting. Strong buyer motivation, good scroll stop. The only issue is clutter. If the bundle is messy, the value becomes harder to understand. Next is BOGO. BOGO is B tier. Buy one, get one is very easy to understand. That's the strength, but it can also cheapen the brand depending on the product. It works best for products people naturally buy multiples of, like drinks, socks, basics, snacks, gifts, consumables. It's a useful format, but it's not universal. Next is Bundle plus Price Anchor. This is A tier. It combines visual abundance with clear savings. The viewer sees a lot of product, then sees the price gap. That's strong. This is especially useful for retargeting because the buyer already understands the product. Now you're making the offer hard to ignore. Strong format, but layout matters. Too much information and it gets cluttered. Next is Holiday Urgency. Holiday Urgency is S tier. This is one of the best urgency formats because the deadline is real, like Mother's Day, Black Friday, Valentine's Day, or holiday shipping cutoffs. You don't have to invent scarcity. The event creates it for you. This makes urgency believable. And when urgency is believable, it converts. S tier. Next is discontinuation urgency. This is C tier. Discontinuation can work because it uses loss aversion. The product might disappear. The color might not come back. The flavor is going away, but it's also fragile. If brands overuse this, people stop believing it. So this can work in specific situations, but I wouldn't rely on it unless the reason is real. C tier. Next is a free gift stack. Free gift stacks are B tier. They can increase perceived value, especially when the free items are visible, but the gift has to feel desirable. A weak free gift does not move people, and if the ad is mostly about bonuses instead of the main product, it can feel gimmicky. Useful, but not always a primary winner. Next is the casual free gift ad. This is D tier. A casual line like, yo, here's a free bag, can feel social native, but it is also easy to make weak. The offer might be clear, but it often lacks enough buyer motivation by itself. It depends too much on tone. The brand voice is not perfect, it feels forced. D tier. So for offer first ads, the clear winners are price anchors and real holiday urgency. The takeaway is simple. Offer ads do not need to be clever. They need to make the value obvious. Now let's move into education first ads. Education first ads teach before they sell. They work because the viewer feels like they got value before being asked to buy. First is the listicle ad. Listicles are B tier. They're very easy to understand and easy to scan. 3 reasons, 5 mistakes, 4 things to know. That structure works well in a static, but listicles are also common. They usually need a strong topic to stop the scroll. So I like the format, but I'd call it useful, not elite. B tier. Next is the how it works diagram. How it works diagrams are B tier. They're great for believability. When the viewer understands how the product works, they trust it more. But diagrams are not always the strongest scroll stop. They need a product with a clear mechanism, and the design has to stay simple. So this is useful but more situational. Next is the step-by-step product experience. This is C tier. Showing the steps can reduce confusion, helps the viewer imagine the product, but as a standalone ad it can feel a little instructional. It's usually better for warm traffic or landing pages than cold audiences. So I'd use it very carefully, so I'd put it in C tier. Next is the hack ad. Hack ads are S tier. They feel like advice, not a pitch. Before paying exterminators, try this. Before soaking that pan, try this. The viewer stops because they think they're about to learn something useful. This makes it very strong for cold traffic. It has high scroll stop, high buyer motivation, and decent believability when the advice feels practical. This is one of the best education first formats. S tier. Next is the helpful tip ad. Helpful tip ads are C tier. They can work, but they're softer than hack ads. A tip gives value, but it does not always create enough urgency or desire. If the tip is too general, people learn something and keep scrolling. So the product needs to be tightly connected to the tip. Otherwise, it becomes content instead of an ad. Next is the ingredient spotlight. Ingredient spotlights are B tier. They're strong in categories where buyers already research ingredients, like skincare, supplements, food, wellness, beauty. The weakness is scroll stop. A single ingredient might be credible, but it's not always exciting. So this works best when the ingredient is already popular or when the buyer is highly educated. Useful but category dependent. Next is the ingredient myth ad. This is C tier. It can create a good wait, why moment, but it's also easy to overcomplicate. If you're telling someone their current ingredient is not working, then you need a clear and credible explanation. Otherwise, it feels like the brand is inventing a problem. So I like the idea, but it's very fragile. C tier. Next is the us versus them. This is S tier. Us versus them ads are one of the most useful static formats because they do the buyer's comparison shopping for them. The buyer was already comparing options. This ad just organizes the comparison. Your product is on one side, the alternative is on the other. Clear wins, clear differences. This creates strong buyer motivation and strong believability when the comparison is fair. S tier. Next is material comparison. Material comparison ads are B tier. It's useful because it compares against what the buyer already owns. Satin versus cotton, ceramic versus traditional non-stick, filtered versus unfiltered. This can be a strong reframe, but it is less visually dramatic than a direct us versus them chart. So I like it, but I'd call it B tier. Next is a Mythbuster ad. Mythbusters are A tier. They work because they challenge an existing belief. It's not aging, it's absorption. It's not sweat, it's the odor reaction. That disagreement creates attention. The reason I'm not putting Mythbusters in S tier is because of believability. The more contrarian the claim, the more proof you need. When done well, this can be extremely strong, but it's also easy to make it sound like marketing nonsense. A tier. Next is the cause reframe. This is C tier. A cause reframe tells the buyer, you thought the problem was one thing, but it might actually be this. This can be powerful, but it's also risky. If the new explanation sounds unsupported or too medical, then trust immediately drops. So this can work, but only when the claim is careful and credible. So C tier. Next is the villain mythbuster. This is C tier. Creating a villain can make the ad more emotional. The industry, the old way, the product everyone has been told to use. But if it goes too far, it starts sounding like conspiracy. High scroll stop, but fragile believability. That keeps it in C tier. Next is the illustrated mythbuster. This is also C tier. The illustration can stop the scroll because it looks editorial or content-like, but the ad still needs to make the product credible. If the visual is interesting but the claim is weak, then it becomes decoration. So this is a creative format I'd test selectively. C tier. For education first ads, the best formats are hack ads and us versus them comparisons. Those are the cleanest because they teach something and naturally push the viewer toward the product. Now let's move on to the social first ads. Social first statics work because they don't look like ads. They borrow formats people already stop for, like memes, screenshots, notes, editorial posts, and ugly content. First is a meme ad. Meme ads are C tier. They can stop the scroll very well, but the problem is buyer motivation. A meme can be funny and still not sell the product. If the product connection is weak, then you got attention without any action. So I don't hate meme ads, but I would not build a whole static strategy around them. C tier. Next is the emotional meme ad. This is F tier. Not because it can never work, because it is extremely easy to make it disconnected from the product. The viewer may relate to the meme. They may even like it, but liking the meme is not the same as wanting the product. Unless the bridge is perfect, this becomes content but not advertising. F tier. Native text messages ads are C tier. People do read screenshots. That's the strength with it. But the format is also fragile. If the text sounds fake, it immediately feels like an ad pretending not to be one. When it works, it feels private and native. When it fails, it feels staged. So I'd test it, but very carefully. C tier. Next is a raw review screenshot. Raw review screenshots are C tier. They're believable but not always scroll stopping. They are usually better for warm traffic, retargeting, or trust building than cold acquisition. The proof is strong, the visual hook is weaker, so this is useful, but I would not rely on it as a primary cold static. C tier. Next is the Notes app screenshot. Notes app ads are C tier. They can feel very native. A checklist, routine, or lesson can make people stop, but the note has to be useful. If it feels like a fake note written by a brand, it loses all credibility. So it can work, but the execution has to be sharp. C tier. Next is the classic native ad. Classic native ads are D tier. This is the format where the image barely looks like an ad. Sometimes it is just text. Sometimes there is no product. That can reduce ad resistance, but it also puts a lot of pressure on the copy. As a static image, it often lacks visual stopping power. So I'd use this selectively. D tier. Next is the editorial ad. Editorial ads are D tier as standalone performance statics. They can look beautiful, they can make the product feel premium, but premium does not always mean performance. A beautiful editorial image can blend into the feed if the hook is too quiet. So I like this for brand positioning, but as a direct response static, it goes in D tier. Next is the premium editorial product ad. This is also D tier. It transfers luxury context into the product. That's useful. But again, the scroll stop and buyer motivation are often too soft. The product looks expensive, but the viewer may not have a strong reason to click. So it's good for brand feel, but weaker for performance. D tier. Next is the handwritten posted hook. This is C tier. The handwritten note creates a strong pattern interrupt. It feels human and personal, but the format depends heavily on what the note says. If the handwritten line is sharp, then it can work, but if it's generic, it becomes a gimmick. So I like it, but it's not automatically strong. Has to go to C tier. Next is a handwritten skin or palm testimonial. This is D tier. It definitely stops the scroll, but it can also feel very gimmicky very fast. Writing a testimonial on someone's palm or body is visually interesting, but it may not feel believable. If the execution is too staged, then trust drops. So I would test this only for specific brands. D tier. Next is the ugly ad. Ugly ads are D tier. I know these can stop the scroll, but stopping the scroll is not enough. A rough sketch or ugly layout can get attention, but often lacks buyer motivation. Unless the message is extremely clear. The viewer just thinks that's weird and keeps moving. So I'd use ugly ads as tests, but not as a core strategy. D tier. Next is the Microsoft Paint style ad. This is F tier. It's a gimmick. It can work once for the right, playful brand, but most brands will make it feel forced. So yes, it stops the scroll, but the buyer motivation and believability are pretty weak. This is the kind of format people overrate because it looks different. Different does not always mean effective, so that's to go to F tier. Next is the handwritten pricing breakdown. This is C tier. It's better than most ugly formats because the rough style actually supports the message. It makes the price math feel honest and human, but it still needs a dramatic price comparison to work. If the math is not compelling, the handwritten style alone will not save it. It has to go to C tier. The lesson with social first ads is this. Not looking like an ad is useful, but it's not enough. The format still has to create a reason to buy. Now let's move on to product first ads. This category only has one main format, the variant grid. Variant grids are B tier. They work because they shift the question. So instead of asking, do I want this, the viewer starts asking, which one do I want? This creates a useful physiological shift. It works well for colors, flavors, styles, sizes, and collectibles, but the product has to be visually strong. If the variants are not exciting, the format is just a product catalog. So this is useful, but it is product dependent. B tier. Now let's move on to demand and FOMO ads. Demand ads work because people don't want to miss what other people already want. First is the sellout ad. Sellout ads are S tier. Scarcity becomes social proof. If the ad sold out multiple times, the viewer assumes demand is real. That does a lot of selling without a long explanation. This works especially well for drops, collectibles, beauty launches, fashion, seasonal products, and limited inventory. The key is to frame it like news. Sold out again, back after selling out, restocked. This makes the product feel like it has momentum. S tier. Next is retail launch. Retail launch ads are D tier. Just landed or new drop can create attention, but new does not automatically mean desirable. A launch ad needs existing demand or a very strong product visual. Otherwise, it's just announcing something that the viewer may not care about. So I'd use this as a support format, not as a main acquisition ad. D tier. Next is the humble brag ad. Humble brag ads are A tier. On the surface, the brand is apologizing. Sorry, your shirt keeps disappearing. We apologize for running out so fast. But underneath that apology is social proof. Demand was too high. This is a strong frame. The reason it is not S tier is believability. The brand has to actually have demand. If a random unknown brand says this, it can feel fake. But for brands with real scarcity, this is very strong. A tier. Next is reverse psychology demand. This is F tier. Please don't buy. Don't wait this time. We can't keep this in stock. These can stop the scroll, but they often feel fake. Unless the brand has massive demand, reverse psychology demand ads come off as manufactured hype. High scroll stop, low believability, F tier. Now let's move into the bonus section. This is where things get interesting. The best static ads usually stack concepts, but stacking only works if the image stays clean. First is the authority badge plus variant grid plus price anchor. This one is C tier. On paper, it has trust, choice, and price clarity. That sounds strong. Whereas a standalone static, it can become crowded fast. Authority logos, product variants, and price anchors are all competing for your attention. If the layout is perfect, it can work, but it's very fragile, so I'm putting it in C tier. Next is the problem callout plus timeline proof plus price anchor. This is A tier. The stack is much cleaner. It follows the buyer's thought process. First, do I have the problem? Then, how long will it take? Then, what does it cost? That's a strong flow. The only reason it's not S tier is that it can still get cluttered if the design is not clean. But strategically, this is a very strong ad structure. A tier. Finally, before and after plus guarantee plus timeline. This is S tier. This is probably the strongest stack in the list. The before and after creates desire. The timeline sets expectations. The guarantee removes risk. It answers 3 buyer questions inside one image. Does it work? How long will it take? And what if it does not work for me? That is exactly what a performance static should do. S tier. So after ranking all 65 static ad formats, here's the biggest lesson. Lower tier does not mean the format can never work. It means I would not rely on it as a primary performance static unless the product, audience, and execution are perfect. The strongest statics usually do 3 things really well. They stop the scroll, they create real buyer motivation, and they feel believable. That's why formats like problem callouts, direct question, and hack ads perform so high in the ranking. They're not just interesting, they're clear, and they're buyer specific, and they make the next step feel obvious. So when you're creating static ads, do not start by asking what should this look like. Start by asking what job does the image need to do. If you need to stop cold traffic, then you need to use a problem callout, direct question, pattern interrupt, hack, or mythbuster. If you need to build trust, use proof, timelines, testimonials, guarantees, authority, or expert approval. If you need to convert warm traffic, you need to use price anchors, bundles, urgency, sellouts, and risk reversal. And if you want the strongest version, stack the concepts. Hook plus proof. Proof plus guarantee. Offer plus urgency. Problem plus timeline plus price. That's how you turn a static ad from a pretty design into a performance creative. And that's why static ads are still one of the fastest and cheapest creative formats to test. They're not filler creatives. They are the building blocks of your entire creative testing system. If you want the swipe file and the scorecard I use for this breakdown, DM me statics on Instagram and I'll send it over. And if you want to see how these statics fit into the full creative testing system, how to launch them, read the results, and scale the winners, click the next video because that's where I break down the full process from idea to winning creative.